I started off this month by watching the Japanese drama film Shoplifters, directed by Hirokazu Koreeda. This film follows a non-biological family that relies on shoplifting to cope with a life of poverty. I'd heard quite a lot about this film, and my expectations were quite high for it. However, this film didn't seem to hit much of a chord with me. I just found the first 70% of this film to drag a bit. I appreciated the cinematography and the solid acting in the film, but besides that I found it to be pretty mundane. Perhaps I wasn't in the right mindset when I went to watch this. I don't want to draw a complete conclusion of this film just yet. I feel I need to really give it another watch. I then rewatched The Imitation Game, directed by Morten Tyldum. This biographic film follows the life of computer pioneer Alan Turing, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, as he tries to crack the Enigma machine, which the Nazis used to send coded messages. The last time I saw this film was in theatres when it was first released back in 2014, so essentially this was a first viewing. I found this film to be quite generic from an artistic point of view. That is not to say that it was a bad film, it was just really unremarkable. It was unremarkable in its cinematography, direction and other creative decisions. If the analogy of a painting was to be used, The Imitation Game would be a clear-lined and hyper-realistic piece, lacking any sort of bold, creative moves that would be present in a more impressionistic or even abstract work. Perhaps this is due to the fact that biopics aren't exactly my thing. All that aside, the story the film was trying to say was deeply fascinating. The story of Alan Turing and his involvement in breaking the Enigma machine is a deeply gripping story which touches on many important themes. The film, I feel, does an okay job portraying all this in a cinematic and audience-friendly way, without relying on heavy exposition. However, this is at the expense of historical accuracy. This is something I'm normally okay with if straying from facts serves the story, but in this case it really doesn't. To say something positive about this film, the acting was good, and the way the film transitions between different time periods was quite smooth. After that, I rewatched The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, Extended Edition, directed by Peter Jackson. This must be the 5th or 6th time I've seen this film. However, this time it was a little different as I actually saw it in the cinema. One of the few benefits of it being 2020 is that cinemas are beginning to re-show old films more. This gives people like me the opportunity to experience what it was like to watch movies when they were first released. The Lord of the Rings has played a huge part of my life from a really young age. Therefore, it is not surprising that I'm a bit biased towards this film. I personally feel like these films should be considered classics at this point. Anyone who hasn't seen them is missing out. After that, I watched the first 2 Jackass movies. These films follow the oftentimes risky stunts and sketches of Johnny Knoxville and his friends. These films are classics in their own right, I guess. They are one of the first examples of raunchy humour in mainstream media, and many other films have been inspired and or influenced by them. To follow that, I then rewatched Interstellar. Set in a dystopian future where humanity is struggling to survive with ongoing food shortages, the film follows a group of astronauts who travel through a wormhole near Saturn in search of a new home for mankind. As it is with most of Christopher Nolan's work, time plays a key role in this film. I found the time-based concept for this film very interesting, if not a bit confusing at times. I particularly loved how Nolan, despite the epic scale of the film, kept the focus largely on the emotional link between McConaughey and his family. The cinematography of this film and the special effects were also superb, along with the score by Hans Zimmer. I then watched the newly released Tenet, directed and written by Christopher Nolan. The plot follows a secret agent who must manipulate time in order to prevent World War III. I came into this film with high expectations. I loved all of Nolan's previous films, particularly The Prestige and Inception, but to be honest, this film didn't entirely live up to expectations. The primary reason for this, for me, was the fact that the film seemed to lose its grounding in reality. A large reason why I liked Christopher Nolan's previous work was that you could actually, for the most part, imagine the story happening in a real-life situation. But this film didn't feel grounded at all. As the movie itself puts it, don't try to understand it, feel it. This pretty well sums up how this film expects the audience to approach its story. When I sat in the cinema watching this, I only felt I was observing and not actually understanding the story. Whatever small bits of explanatory exposition provided were mumbled and non-comprehensive, and at times just confused things even more. The film raised more questions than it answered, and not in a good way. This is all without mentioning the jarring plot holes which were present throughout the film. On a more positive note, the action sequences in this film were terrific. I can easily say there was not a dull moment in this film. I then watched the Icelandic film Echo, directed by... This film follows everyday life in Iceland around Christmas time. The film explores 56 different vignettes, each showcasing joy, sorrow, and other thought-provoking situations. This film is quite unique in that it really isn't a narrative film at all. It feels more like a documentary, but with no set subject or theme. The film is made entirely up of 56 stationary tripod shots of everyday events, none of which are related or repeated. I feel the main purpose of this film is to project an idea or emotion to the audience, rather than actually telling a story. The film is really just portraying the feeling of Christmas in Iceland rather than explaining it. I can't really say the film does anything else but that though. If you're interested in unique indie films, then this is probably a good watch. And that is about everything that I watched this month. Please let me know what you thought of the films showcased in this video. I'll see you all next month.